Good morning, Roy.
Morning, Nick. How are you today?
Very good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you for asking.
Lovely. Roy, first of all, thanks for your time. I know it's precious, important, and I'm sure this interview is going to be extremely insightful. We usually start from an introduction about you, and I thought I'd leave it to you.
Thanks, Nick. So I don't like talking about myself, so I'll be relatively brief. I am president and managing director of a public affairs firm in Pennsylvania in the United States. And our primary purpose is to elevate diverse voices for decisions that matter. So people hire our firm in order to build relationships with decision makers at all levels of government in order to achieve however they define success. Um, it's something I've been doing for over 30 years. I started working in government in the late 1980s after going to graduate school studying international relations and Soviet studies. But when the Soviet Union fell in the late 80s, so did my dissertation. So I started working in state government. So that's, I grew up about 230 miles or 370 kilometers from where I work today. So it's about a 4 hour drive. So really the northeastern part of the United States is where I call home.
Okay, thanks, Roy. And I would say we met each other 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago at Oxford University
Yeah.
during one of the courses we were attending together.
We are both lifelong learners, Nick, and it's interesting how people's paths cross in life. It's a random walk that we take, and sometimes we intersect and meet interesting people. So it's great having met you, and it's great getting to know you better and participating with you today.
Definitely, it's me feeling grateful and privileged. And as you said, it's fascinating how we came across and we stay in contact as well.
Very much so.
Going through this line, I think we found each other with very similar values, personal values. And I'm seeing you as a teacher in terms of leadership for how you manage the firm you are the president of. So I'm stepping into the context of emotional intelligence already. And in your firm's website, I did read something about 30 fundamental behaviors. Uh, they generate a competitive advantage. So I'm curious to ask you, what are these behaviors and how they transform in a tangible advantage for
Sure.
the firm?
I'm glad the money we spent on our website was well served. So when we talk about those 30 fundamental behaviors, they really comprise the culture that we've built in our company. And so our culture, our purpose is to elevate diverse voices for decisions that matter. So everything we do is done in a way that helps our clients become known in a way that helps them achieve success. And we do that by understanding their company, understanding their persona, the people who work there, and we build relationships. Really, all we are relationship managers. We manage the relationship between our client and decision makers. Life is about managing relationships. I think everything we do revolves around developing relationships. So for us, we wanted to have a culture that we could continuously work on and build and strengthen. And so these 30 fundamental behaviors are really a way in which we ritualize that culture. So every week we take one of those behaviors and we practice it. We've been doing this since 2020, since January of 2020. So every 30 weeks we start again. So, investing in relationships is one of our fundamental behaviors. And we have to remind ourselves the importance of investing in relationships. Listening generously is one of those behaviors. Um, Creating a feeling of friendliness and warmth, showing meaningful appreciation. These are all things that are meant to work within the firm and also externally with our clients. And if we practice these things well, then our culture is strong. And really, it's all about building teams and having a team-centric approach, which maybe we might touch on later. But we want to build high-performing teams, and it really starts with how we behave with one another and how we behave collectively. And so this culture that we're building and this sense of team and the sense of family has us present ourselves in the marketplace differently than some of our competitors might. Our business is one historically, which is, one person with relationships manages a client and gets something done. We think it takes a team, like a village, where people with many different relationships, a diversity of views, a diversity of experiences, bring those people together to meet the client's needs. So having that strong culture, we think, gives us that competitive advantage in the marketplace, different from our competitors. Some who may practice what we do, but I don't think anybody goes as deeply into the ritualization of it and the practice. Culture. I don't know if culture eats strategy. Culture eats strategy. I think they complement one another. But we spend a lot of time on building our culture, and those behaviors are really the fundamental building block of our culture.
Right, I'm loving how you emphasize the importance of the team. I did read in the same website that, yeah, now you're understanding. I spent kind of few times, so the money was well spent. I did read the team-centric approach. What do you mean with this?
So every client that we represent has a team leader, and then a number of people who support that team leader and support that client. And so everything that I've been doing over the last 5 to 10 years, my journey, my educational journey, my continuing educational journey, is how do I build and how do I create an environment for my teams to perform at the highest level? Because if my teams can perform at the highest level, if I can give my clients a strong team of people who can meet their needs, that's going to achieve success for them. And then that success leads to more success for us in terms of building more business, getting more referrals. So everything that we do supports that team. The tactics that we're able to bring to our clients are because we've built a strong team around it. And so we don't want people who are transactional in that they only look out for themselves. Now, those can be very good people. They can perform at a very high level, but we need people who can perform in a collaborative way as a team because it's that collaboration. It's having a lot of smart people in the room, surrounding myself with a lot of people who are smarter than me. That team can build a better strategy and should execute a better strategy than one individual might. And so team to us is central to our success. And as I said, the culture, everything we do internally is how do we keep those teams strong and evolving to always get better, to always improve. Because constant improvement is important. The marketplace evolves, the marketplace changes, and so we need to keep abreast of that change and provide our people and our teams with the ability to be successful.
Thanks, Roy. I'm seeing, I love to reiterate, I never talk based on circumstances. Okay. I don't want to look nice because of the interview. Stating this, I really see the mentality, the mindset of a leader. Surround yourself with people that can do their job better than you is a point where I'm witnessing many entrepreneurs or CEOs can fall. So I'm asking you, I'm trying to relate your development journey to those entrepreneurs that are still not there yet. For example, if I have an employee that performs, I'm fine with that. I'm not really watching the cooperation, the cohesion that that member can bring to the team, but I just watch the performance and so far it's good. So I would ask how or when you embraced this leadership culture.
It's funny because, when you're young, and you're trying to make your way, you want to demonstrate how smart you are. You want to demonstrate that you're one of the smartest people in the room, if not the smartest person in the room. And I think when we start our journey young and entrepreneurial, everything is on our shoulders. And so we work hard to show how good we are, how successful we can help someone become, and we put it on ourselves, and that's tough. And I think it wears people out. I think it makes it hard. I think a lot of failures come because we put too much on ourselves. And so I'm guilty of that in the beginning. I'm not going to say that I started out team centric, and I mean I did a lot to prove myself and demonstrate myself and create opportunities for myself. But I think you reach a point where trying to be the smartest person in the room doesn't demonstrate humbleness. It doesn't show humility. Um, it sometimes lacks transparency and authenticity, which are all important traits. And so I think as I got into my first real job, where it was very collaborative, everyone cared about each other, everyone treated each other like family, and I was surrounded by a lot of other smart people. I didn't have to be the smart person anymore, I could be one of the smart people. It was such a sense of relief to have other people you could depend on, other people you could work with, and other people who could help you grow and you could help them grow and create that two-way street, if you will. So for me, I think it's it's a journey, and I think people need to become self-aware as they're taking that journey. And the more self-aware one becomes, the more that you can embrace working with others and seeing the value of how you work with others.
What should be, from your point of view, a from an insider point of view, what suggestion might be a trigger or a call to action for other entrepreneurs to open to this new leadership?
You know, I have a liberal arts education and took ancient philosophy, and I had the benefit of just a couple months ago traveling to Greece and seeing a lot of the great elements of Western civilization. One of the places we traveled to was Delphi
Or
and saw the Temple of Apollo. And so Socrates was someone who said, "To know thyself is the beginning of wisdom." And Socrates didn't pen that phrase. To know thyself was really part of the Temple of Apollo. So, so I think for me, it's no, and I think for any entrepreneur, and I think for anybody at all, no matter where you walk in life, you need to know yourself. You need to become self-aware. You need to know what your strengths are. You need to understand your weaknesses, and you need to find people who can complement you, who can build up where you're not that strong, and you can build up where they're not that strong. And again, part of that team approach is, everybody sort of complementing each other, bringing something of value to the table. So I think self-awareness is the key. Um, and I think to be a good leader, you have to be self-aware. And for me, that's also part of the journey, right? Because, sometimes we want to live in our own reality, and we create our own reality, and we disregard what other people's reality is. So, but for me, self-awareness is central. And it's what's helped me become a better leader. It's also helped me become a better follower, for that matter. Part of a team approach is you have a team lead. If I'm on the team, but I'm not the team lead, I have to take direction from somebody who might be 30 years younger than I, because she or he is that team leader. So, you have to be comfortable in your own skin. You have to be self-aware. And at the end of the day, you want everybody to participate, and make each other better.
I love the fact that you mentioned Socrates and that you we've been there as well. At the School of Philosophy, we mentioned that quote in that specific place almost every meeting. The goal of practical philosophy is getting to know yourself, and is
Yeah.
considered, as you said, the beginning of wisdom, and as well that knowledge that supports all other knowledge.
Yeah.
We oftentimes touch the point of self-leadership in order for becoming a leader, and I believe you gave a good opinion, good perspective already. I would take advantage of these last 5, 10 minutes to ask you again a typology of culture that I found on still the same website. So I spent some time there.
Yes.
I love the mindset drives behaviors, behaviors drives performance, and performance drives outcomes. Would you like to articulate a little bit
Sure.
better?
We
So
did.
I would like, sorry, Roy, I would like others to understand or to embrace how important is the leadership culture for performance.
So everybody in our firm reads a particular book called Leadership and Self-Deception. Everybody in our firm has taken themselves through a process of becoming self-aware. And we call that an outward mindset. A little different than Carolyn Dweck's version of open and closed mindset. Some similarities, but somewhat different. An outward mindset is one where we see people as people. We don't see people as a transaction. We don't see people as a means to an end. Transactions flow from the relationship, but the relationship is central to it. The transaction flows from the relationship. The relationship doesn't necessarily flow from the transaction. It can, but so really it's about having a mindset where we see people as people, and the culture that we have, the behaviors are part of that. So if you have an open mindset, if you see people as people, if you don't treat people as a transaction, you're not about yourself, you're about others. If you have that mindset drives the behaviors. So you can't perform our 30 fundamental behaviors unless you have that open mindset. So the mindset drives the behaviors. And if we can behave in accordance with those 30 fundamentals, if we can speak straight to our clients, if we can do what's in their interest, even if it's not in our own interest, those behaviors are going to drive our performance. And so if we perform well, then success and the outcome will follow, and we want a successful outcome. So that open mindset drives our behaviors. Those behaviors drive our performance, and that performance drives the outcomes on behalf of our clients. And it also does the same internally in individual relationships within the teams, within the firm, or in life in general with family. How you approach somebody and the way you approach somebody is important. You've all been at that party where someone walks up to you, and while they're talking to you, they're looking over your shoulder because they're looking for the person who they really want to talk to. So they don't care about you. They're not interested in you. They're just being nice until they get to the objective that they're looking for. And we sense that as human beings. We know that that's happening. We've all experienced it, and we've probably experienced it with others. We've probably had that bad behavior where we were focused on somebody else. And so if you really focus on the person in the moment, you're building trust, you're building the relationship. And really at the center of everything is how do you build trust? And so that to me is what that continuum represents. And so we're always mindful of it. And again, it's part of that culture that we've built here.
Of it, Troy, and I I'm grateful for touching the point of what a human being can sense. We cannot yet measure, but we sense transparency when a person is genuine towards us. This is something that we have as humans, and I'm glad you pointed it out because as you know, I do work with emotions, and when we talk about emotions, we talk about energy. And we produce that certain energy with the right intentions. So if I'm listening to you with a pure interest, you can feel it, you can sense it. If I'm being fake, you can sense it too. That's how we
Absolutely.
build this typology of long-lasting and strong relationships.
Yeah. And I think to your point on emotions, emotions are how we show up. I mean, how we're feeling that day says a lot about how we show up at work, how we show up with each other, how we show up with a spouse or significant other. Emotions are a key element of that, and understanding your emotions and others' emotions can help you navigate through some, pretty critical moments in life. So I think the work that you're doing really with emotional intelligence has tremendous value because again, it's part of that self-awareness journey, being in touch with your emotions. And sometimes, we just, the one thing about mindset is, you know, I had a trainer who once said, before I took this training, I was inward and about myself 90% of the time. After the training, I was only inward maybe 50% of the time. It's understanding that, there are those times where something triggers you. And now you're in your own head, you're living your own story, you're not living the reality. You're being driven by your emotions. And most decisions we make are 90% emotion and maybe 10% based on the facts. So being in touch with your emotions is critical, and being in touch with the emotions and being empathetic and understanding the emotions of the person across from you is as equally important.
I totally agree, Roy. Non-biased, that is the very foundation for a good relationship. When we can listen to each other and where we can communicate assertively without harming each other, but stating how am I feeling and how different situations makes me feel or makes you feel. So, Roy, it's been a great conversation. Before to say goodbye, what would be your suggestion, your advice to those entrepreneur business owners or even individuals that are still 50-50 on embarking in emotional intelligence training or leadership skills enhancement? What would you say to them?
So there was one book that I've read that was transformational for me. And I read it maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And I wish I'd read it when I was in my 20s. Book is called Leadership and Self-Deception. It's a fable. It's a story. It's not a textbook, but it's written by an institute in the United States called the Arbinger Institute, which they're not a client. I get no
Okay.
royalties from the purchase of the book. The book is translated into many, many languages. And it's all of, I think, $10, 10 euros. And that book really showed me the importance of being in touch with yourself and becoming self-aware. That book was transformational, and there are a couple of other books that are associated with that book. And for me, that made all of the difference in terms of how I run my company, how I interact with others, recognizing at times when I do dumb things with people, when I overreact to a situation. You're always going to have these triggers that bring you inward and have you telling the story. And we not jokingly say, but it's you can either honor your commitment or not honor your commitment. You can either do the right thing or not do the right thing. When you choose to not do the right thing, you have to tell yourself a story as to why you're not doing the right thing. And so now you're living in your own story, and that's going inward. And I think it's understanding and recognizing when you've gone inward, because you don't know it in the moment. Things happen, you just go inward. You need to be able to recognize the telltale signs of that and stop and regroup and maybe apologize to the person who you went inward against or with. But it's important. I think it's like I said, for $10, it's a 2 hour read. It's a wonderful story. It's a business, kind of a business story. But that's what I would recommend to anybody. Start there and then start your journey.
Super. Thanks, Roy. I appreciate mm, your contribution. I see them very valuable, and hopefully many leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs, and individuals gonna listen to you. Hopefully, again, mm, get to read this book, hoping that yes, many doors gonna be opened.
Well, Nick, I'm impressed with the journey that you've been on since we first met and the success that you're having and the work that you're doing. I think everybody needs a coach. Everybody needs a mentor. If you don't think you need a coach or you don't think you're in need or in need of a mentor, you're on the wrong track. Everybody needs someone with whom they can talk to, they can confide in, who they can feel safe talking to, talk about their needs, wants, and desires, both positive, and the things that they're struggling with, and just having a someone to bounce ideas off of. So the work that you're doing is incredibly important. I'm hoping that the human beings that you're dealing with are seeing the value that you bring, and to your continued success, my friend.
Thank you, Roy, and I thank you for your help and support as well with spreading emotional awareness and the internal dynamics of the real meaning of implementing a leadership culture that is focused on humans.
Thank you, Nick,
Roy,
very much.
thanks again. Enjoy
Thank
your
you, my
day.
friend.
Thank you. Thank you.